Hey, it's Sean Carlos. Welcome to Movies Worth Talking About with special guest
Hey, that's me.
Eddie. Yeah, that's you. We're here to talk about Freaky, um, a movie that we both liked, hence why we're talking about it. Um,
Yeah.
I do find it fun. I don't know if this was ever like an intentional thing when we started, because I kind of didn't realize I was a Christopher Landon fan for a while. I just sort of went like, oh,
You?
like, yes, like I'm not saying in the last year, but like leading up to
Oh,
somewhat
okay.
recently, like, like the I really enjoyed the writing of Paranormal Activities 2 and 3 and 4 and the marked ones. I like the marked ones. You like the marked ones more than me.
A
Uh,
lot. Yeah.
I found a lot of value in 4. Um,
Yes.
and then I think about the Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, and by the time I get to Happy Death Day, I think it was between Happy Death Day 1 and 2 where I started going like, oh, Paranormal Activity, huh? I fucking
Mm.
like this guy. It turns out I'm a fan. I just didn't realize I was a fan. So much so that we've done a Paranormal Activity discussion video, and we've
Hmm.
done a Happy Death Day video. So we've
Hmm.
already kind of, you know, we've already blown the guy enough. Like, I don't mean that, but I'm just saying that, like, here we
Maybe
are
you
again.
have.
You well, no, but what I'm getting at is like, here we are again. Like, it's the altar of Chris Landon. He has a new movie, and now I'm like, well, let's talk about that one. Like,
Right.
I feel like I saw an interview with the cast
Oh,
and Chris Landon and Jason Blum, and he mentioned that like there's almost nothing that Chris Landon couldn't bring to Blumhouse that we would say no to,
mm.
and that's starting to be like how I feel as a viewer. I'm
I know
like,
what you mean. Sure.
there's pretty
Yeah.
much nothing that he couldn't make now. Where I'm not like, what is it now? Because I want to see it. Uh, so yeah,
That said,
that said,
um, shall we dive in? Because
yeah,
I didn't see it for a while, actually. I mean, I
same
didn't
here.
see it until what, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. And
It came out in November, Friday the 13th
yeah,
in November 2020.
and I
I
knew that it was
almost saw
coming
it at my
out.
local drive-in, but I end up not going.
Oh, okay. No, see, I
But I w-
knew it was coming out. I knew I was interested, but I barely knew the premise. But again, I knew it was a Christopher Landon movie, so I'm like, oh, I'll see it. I'll see it eventually. Um, the thing that kept me from going actually was knowing that Vince Vaughn was attached to it, and even though some people might think it's for like political reasons or whatever, I don't care. But the biggest thing for me was just it had been a while since I'd seen Vince Vaughn in something that I had been impressed with, and I mean, to the point where I was watching him in movies or even just watching him in trailers for movies I would never see, going, there is nothing happening. There is literally no work to behold. He just kind of wandered on set and saying lines. And I don't feel like supporting that when I could go be seeing something else. So I didn't know, and I didn't know what he was playing. I didn't know, like all that. I knew it was like a body swap thing, but I didn't, when you don't let something sink in because you don't want to figure it
yes,
out. You just kind of want to go in and
yes.
be surprised. I've done that even watching trailers where I'll see something and just be like, sometimes I'll look at my shoes and just be like, okay, I know enough. The ticket is
Yep.
bought. I don't need to know
The
anymore.
trailer for Freaky, about halfway through, I'm like, done. You're already showing me
Yeah.
beats and scenes I don't want to see. I'm sold. Just enough of the trailer.
Right. So I knew I'd see it eventually, and then I finally got to see it like for work, and I was really happy. I think because my expectations were so low, because even though I really, really do like this movie, as I usually say, I got notes, but I know there were a lot of people who actually kind of like rained down some wrath on this movie and don't like it at all and completely dismiss it. And I feel like it might be the same people who dismissed Happy Death Day, or and those movies, and especially the sequel and stuff like that. I don't have any proof. It's just a
They're missing
feeling.
out on some fun stuff, man.
Well, because this is the thing. I feel like it. broadly, the broadest thing I can say is I feel like what it does well enough that I have a good time with it. And I knew I wanted to see it again. I was just kind of like, this is a great time. You know, it's not like my favorite movie of 2020 or whatever. I don't even know what my favorite movie of 2020 is. I don't even want to think about it. But but I had a good time. Like, that's all I need. I don't really need, I mean, particularly from like a teen slasher movie, I was thoroughly satisfied. And the rest of it, that I wasn't like, this is ideal. I was like, I see where you're going. I get it. And that sometimes that bothers me. In this case, it really didn't. So I guess it's just a matter of taste, but I liked it. That's what I have to say about going into it.
Yeah. I remember, thinking when I saw Happy Death Day, like, I wouldn't say it was revolutionary, but it felt like, well, here's something new. You're blending a thing with a thing.
Right.
And then when you do a sequel, now, and I don't know if he ever intends to be this guy forever, but now it feels like Christopher Landon could be I'm the guy who takes this and this and makes a this,
Right. Yeah.
So now I have a next one. Now it doesn't feel as fresh. And that's not a bad thing, because this movie delivers exactly what, if you describe this movie to someone, this movie delivers exactly what the description is.
Exactly.
Yeah. But also, now I have an expectation because I know what you do and I know that you're good at it. But it really delivered to me, and I had a fun time.
Yeah.
But also, I'm really glad we did this because I went and bought it, and I watched it a second time just to enjoy it again. And then I watched it a third time to kind of jot down some notes. And I got something more out of it each time I watched it. So when the first time I watched it, I was like, yeah, it's a premise. It delivers a premise. It's got fun kills. It's funny. I like the characters. I like the vibe. It's fun. I want to own it.
Right.
And I'm not going to say it's super deep, but I do find things kind of simmering beneath the surface more, that like, I'm glad I bought this. I'm glad he made it, because I'm getting more out of it. And isn't that nice when you have a movie where not only do you get more out of it, but something that seems as straightforward and entertainment-y, popcorn-y, premise-y? Because it's, I don't know, on the one hand, as a horror comedy, I don't think it's scary, which is fine, because not every horror movie has to be scary. It just needs to be playing in a macabre wheelhouse. It definitely delivers on the comedy, and I do think that the horror tropes and the comedy beats really support each other and reflect each other in fun ways without pulling from each other. But it's still not necessarily a scary movie.
No.
But even knowing that it is a fun movie, I wasn't prepared for, so I guess we'll just kind of dive into. I just got the vaguest hints of it the first time when they constantly refer to Millie when she's in the butcher's body. They'd still refer to her as her, and they refer to Millie as the butcher as him. And I went, huh, interesting. But at one point they have to like correct. I think Booker refers to her as him, and they're like, pronouns. He's like, her. And I went, oh, this came out in 2020. How timely. Like, what a neat. I don't know if this movie's trying to say something, but that's in there. And that's neat to have.
Yeah.
Going back and really having that on my mind, though, and taking into account that both the writers are gay, that not only is there like one of your lead characters is a gay high school student, but there's a joke about the mailman. They're playing with pronouns. We'll get to it probably later, but the whole back seat of the car scene. I wouldn't necessarily say this is all quote unquote gay content, and I'm clearly no expert on that, but under the blanket, I know, I'm forgetting the other writer's name, not Chris Landon, but
I don't know.
But I know he considers the film a queer movie, even though I would say, like, even though there's not necessarily a gay hero, it's not about quote unquote homosexual romance or anything like that. But under the blanket of LGBT, as far as queer cinema having all sorts of things, yes, in its own way,
Hmm.
you are telling a, I don't know if it's even quite allegorical, but like a trans allegorical story, or just either way, you've got a male
Hmm.
essence and a female trapped in a female body and vice versa.
Right.
And with that, not only are you addressing pronouns, but you're also addressing the idea of like a character finding strength in their new body. You're dealing with Booker as a love interest, judging who Millie is on the inside and not what sexual appendage is on the outside. There is a lot
Mm.
of ideas brewing in this movie that I appreciated, and I wonder if the type of viewer who sees that sort of thing in a more blatant, obvious hit you over the head kind of way, and they go, "Oh, stupid SJW Hollywood stuff," because this movie doesn't feel that overt. And I would love to find out if there's people who didn't pick up on that, or there's people who did pick up on that and minded or didn't mind. Because Lord knows, I think there's plenty of people in the community that would respond positively to um, this sort of thing, especially because coming from, let's say, here's a weird example, but like in the 90s and early 2000s,
Hmm.
when you're making like The Matrix, and The Matrix is like a trans allegory. Everything had to be done through like metaphor and stuff, at least from
Hmm.
a studio level, right? There was plenty of indie film addressing things and trans and like queer kind of perspectives, but this is far less allegorical. This is not quite a little trans story, but it is literally someone trapped in an opposite sex body.
Right.
And it's refreshing to see the Universal Studios logo
Mm.
releasing a movie where it's this on Front Street without ever feeling preachy or flag wavy in any kind of way.
Hmm.
It made me think of Bride of Chucky,
Mm.
which also had like a gay best friend who also
Yeah.
wasn't like some limp wristed joke. It
Hmm.
was just like, I'm a character and I'm the helpful character and I'm gay. And I'm like, and that
Yeah.
was also Universal. So I don't know what's going on over at Universal, but
Hmm.
I can't speak for the other community, but as a hetero dude, I appreciate seeing it out there.
Hmm. Yeah. I think as
There's
is the
my
case
straight
with.
2 cents.
I'll take them. Thank you.
There you go.
The as far as I know, because this is the thing. Also, I'm still abiding by lockdown rules, so I'm not interacting with people all that much these days. But I have spoken to two other gentlemen who identify as gay regarding this film, and neither of them like it at all.
Interesting.
And it's like, okay, cool. So like, so I mean, I'm sure it's not because of the reasons that it is as inclusive as it is, but I think there are some things that just aren't their taste, or that would. One in particular actually pointed out to me the fact that like when Josh is and Nyla are outrunning Millie inside the butcher's
Uh-huh.
body, and he says something to the extent, "I'm gay, you're black, we're so screwed," or something like that, and he was like, what really bothered him was that he felt like the movie was handling stereotypes without ever broadening them. And I thought, well, I feel like that's kind of the point, but he just didn't like it. And so, I mean, it's as is the case with anything, like even if you create, if you use your platform to create content that is inclusive, that will hopefully appeal to people within a demographic that has been neglected or been depicted by people who aren't a member of that particular demographic. There are still people who are going to say, "Yeah, great, great, it exists. I still don't like it."
Right.
I'm not one of those people, but that does. I'm not saying I'm not one of those people. And that makes me, no, it just, I, again, I feel like I saw the point. I got it. I was just kind of like, cool. It's not that complicated. And because I I didn't come to the movie expecting it to even be Happy Death Day, or to kind of fathom the depths that that movie did on an emotional level, on a character level, or anything like that. I just kind of, everything about it told me, you're going to have a good time. I did. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And like you said, there were like some other little things here and there that I really appreciated, and the things that I didn't, they were, none of them were deal breakers for me.
Yeah,
So
well, it's funny,
that's
like like your friend found them to be kind of more stereotypical. I mean, one of the aspects, I can't remember the character's name, but the gay best friend,
Josh.
Josh. At first, his first like 5 seconds, it's just like, okay, I'm the sassy gay character, and you go, okay, but, and then we just kind of keep going. I've been very aware in the last maybe 2 years, hearing from podcasts, especially interviews with writers, and being aware of other gay people I know in the entertainment industry, and the kill your gays trope, and how we're starting to get very tired of the kill your gays trope. And and even having that in horror, Bride of Chucky is a really good example. You have a positive gay character, you create positive queer romances, and then we have to make it tragic in some way. And the fact that he gets to be so quote unquote sassy, but also gets to be most of the time in a supportive, right-minded, helpful position, so that they don't have to necessarily be mutually exclusive. Like, you can be a sassy little shit, but can also make sure your friend doesn't want to ride home. You good?
Yeah.
You good?
He's as much a character in the movie as anybody else is.
Well,
he isn't. Yeah.
That's one of the things I really liked about this. Him, and also her friend, the other one,
Nyla.
Every video we do, I'm gonna be terrible with names. Josh and Nyla. What I like about them is she isn't the okay, like, I'm the best friend and I have sass. Just like, they both get to be lived in, and we then don't rely on those tropes to define their characters. I like the fact that they are both just as important to the goings-ons as Millie, and not necessarily just like these secondary characters. So much so that like I was rooting towards the end of the movie, where Millie has been stabbed in the leg and is slowly running, but is it Nyla? Nyla and Josh outrun her to catch the butcher, and it doesn't. It matters to me that they are on this journey and trying to make it succeed. Like, I cheered as like they ran past them to fucking save the day.
Yeah, me too. I
aren't just supporting characters.
No, I was a huge champion of their friendship. There was something about the fact that, because they could have just done the scene where they're like in the beginning when they're getting out of the car and they're like while walking together to school and everything, and okay, I'm getting to know you and you. But the thing that hooked me in actually was a Nyla moment when she got to talk to Millie one-on-one after Josh has gone into class or whatever, and just kind of talk to her about her mother and about her life, and about like, you have to choose things for you can't live for somebody, that kind of stuff. And I was just like, again, maybe I'm just really easy to please, but I was just kind of like, oh, she's a good friend.
Yes.
Like, she's a real, that's a real friend, the person who's going to get behind you and tell you, even if it's something hard to share with you, they don't want to see you screw yourself over. And so immediately I was just like,
to shut your mouth and just,
yeah. So I was just
and
kind
you
of
think
like,
that's
oh my
being
gosh.
the good friend, but
yeah, but I was just like, oh my gosh, Millie has a support system beyond her family, because her family's not really all there right now, because we find out, like, they're dealing with the loss of her father and everything. And so, and then when the butcher's body, when Millie in the butcher's body is chasing Josh and Nyla, and then they finally do the thing. I know people, I've already heard some accounts from people who were upset that it just was really, really easy, that it like went like that for them to apparently kind of like, but me as an audience member, I know what this is. I've seen it in Shazam, I've seen it in Big.
other body swap movies. That's
Yes,
how it
right.
goes,
If
people.
there's somebody who needs to convince somebody else that I'm not this person, I'm me, you know, and the hot chick with Anna Faris and Rob Schneider. And it's the way you get there is the secrets you share, the you know, the components of your friendship that are only belong to you. And I knew that was coming. The movie served it up. And because and we'll have more on this later, but because I really, really like Vince Vaughn's performance, I totally bought it. I was like, okay, we're here. Good. It was another kind of breather moment for me to just kind of like, good, we've crossed this hurdle. We didn't have to spend the whole movie with her being alone, trying to convince people this is happening to me. She's got her support system back on her side. They needed to run from her. I get it. And now she's got a little team. And then she's peeing in a toilet and and doing this.
And a little slap, slap, slap. Yeah.
And the movie's on, and I have something to say about that too. But have you any response to anything I just thought?
Well, no. Well, before I address that scene, I just going back half a tick to her friends.
Yes.
I respect that Nyla. It's not just that scene that you're citing when she's talking about how concerned she is for Millie. Yeah. It's also when Josh, and I had to write it down here. Well, actually, there's two instances. One is when they find out that 4 teenagers are dead. He's like, oh my God. She's like, are you smiling? Like, she is the voice of reason between the three of them. Millie's a bit of a wallflower. Josh is a sassy asshole. And she is constantly correcting and guiding people. My favorite of her guidance is when they're talking about Homecoming. And Josh says, I'm in it for the drunk straight boys who will suddenly realize they're fluid. And she's like, that sounds kind of rapey. Because the first time I saw it, I was like, thank God. Because there's very, very little, I know maybe the world doesn't need more input from a hetero guy on stuff, but I am going to say this, okay?
Yeah.
It is a thing from the hetero perspective.
Yeah.
That we will often hear, if you're friends with gay people, jokes about, oh, we just haven't tried this yet. Oh, like we'll get you drunk and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of tee-hee-heed, but like, I've always found it kind of ironic that it's not a choice. But let me joke about how like it is a choice for you. Like I don't, so the fact that they wrote a character who's gay, talking about getting straight dudes drunk and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's totally a thing. And that's an accurate thing that I have heard several times. And I will also say, I don't think it's cool. And I like the fact that there was a character in the movie who basically said, that's not fucking cool.
Right.
And the fact that that was gay writers who wrote that clearly know that that is a thing.
Yeah.
So
I have to say,
it's one of the few times that I, as a hetero, could watch it, not necessarily say I saw representation because my characters were represented there, but that scenario, I'm like, I feel heard. It is not cool to joke about that.
No, I know what you mean. I think that's one of the first things I was conscious of, if I may get personal for a minute. When I came out, when I was 18, I remember thinking like, it's not like I ever had like, you know, I think you were the only straight guy friend I had, but so I didn't ever really feel like I had a way in, you know, to straight guy and me conversation, you know, because you were anything but typical John Carlos. You still are, and that's a compliment. But no, but like, you know, so your typical straight guy kind of thing. I remember just feeling really quiet and really like uncomfortable, and just kind of, you take the lead because I'll meet you halfway if I can. But I never wanted to be the kind of guy who, you know, if guys would like tell me they were straight, I could, even if I was attracted to them, I didn't want to be the guy who said like, maybe you just haven't been with the right guy yet, because number one, it's not it, and you're like, well, because number one, that's not me, and also because number two, and this isn't me judging people per se, but there's nothing particularly attractive to me about kind of arm wrestling somebody in a way, or trying to make a case for them to be attracted to me.
Right.
I need someone to be attracted to me.
Right.
And if they're not, I'm not gonna win them over. I'm not gonna work on them or anything. That said, I also, you know, came out later. I was not gay in high school, and it's a different thing. And I do know, again, gay guys in close quarters, you know, like spaces where they know people aren't going to take them too seriously, there are gay guys who will make those jokes, and even, whether they're true or not, there are gay guys who will make those jokes without a thought. And actually, that moment, it's funny. I love that you brought it up, because that moment, my heart did a little skip, because I don't know. I liked watching him be free enough to make that joke. I
Hmm.
also liked watching watching Nyla feel free enough to kind of call him on it. But because I guess my window to representation is through Josh, there was part of me that was just kind of like, I mean, they're out in the Midwest, right? Where are they? I can't remember. Are they in the
Yeah,
Midwest?
I know they filmed in Georgia,
Okay.
but
So it's
I don't
supposed to
think they
be,
ever
but
say.
it's supposed
Yeah,
to be
it's
like any town America, basically,
yeah.
right? So so I'm, at least as far as I can remember, I don't remember a location being, but I got a very strict kind of, not strict, like a very broad kind of Americana feel. Like, you know, could be anywhere. But I did get a small town vibe. And because I got that, being gay in a small town, I know if you're going to have experiences, you got to find them where you're going to find them. Also, the fact that later on in the movie, what he says actually does happen. There is a guy who full on drinks enough to feel fluid and puts the moves on him. And I'm like, okay, then that's that. Well, then, okay, at least they're talking about something that happens. It's not, you know, like we don't know what his experiences have been
Oh,
up until then. And
I
so
got the
it's like,
impression from that line that he's speaking from experience.
exactly. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, okay, well then if that's the way you roll until you can move to the big city,
And
and
find
it
a
did,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
also
it
part.
may, yeah, no, it actually reminded me of something. I showed before the lockdown and everything like that. I had a movie night with some friends of mine where some of them hadn't seen The Exorcist and some had not seen it for years and years and years. And me, I have it committed to memory, and I got the blue. So I'm like, well, I'll bring it over and we'll watch it. We watched it. Nobody was scared, and my one of my friends, Marnie, was laughing whenever Regan
Marnie,
would
no.
no, whenever Regan possessed would cuss out someone, especially the priests, she was clapping and laughing. And she has her own history, her own difficult history with, you know, like religion and being, you know, being told you're a woman, be, you know, be submissive and everything like that. So there was something that like lit fireworks in her just watching a girl, you know, like a small girl, even though she's possessed, it's still a small girl telling a priest, your mother sucks cocks in hell.
Mhm.
And that liberated something in her. And I felt not exactly that, but I did feel a twinge of that when I got to see Josh just make that joke. I remember being like, oh, I like you.
Well,
Okay, kid, you know yourself, you know.
I don't want to say like I mean the justification too isn't like you said, like, you know, you get to the city and find someone who likes for you and not just because they're drunk.
Right.
Um, but also like from his point of view of in that city, like, yo, pickings are slim, and he shows this old
The
dude,
mailman.
and then he goes, here's what's. But that sets up to me a really great, and you want to talk about, like, you know, queer content or queer representation or any kind of positive thing going forward. They take a thing which is a joke, which is look what my options are. Ew, gross old man in like leather. Ew. And then we see the mailman later, and they humanize the fuck out of him. So
Yeah.
like, I mean, I wish Josh could have been there to see him be humanized, but just the idea that they took like an old leather daddy and kind of turned it into a very sympathetic character and really grounded him. You evolve the joke into something more, and I think
Yeah.
that is another little thing that this movie did well. Going off of what you said, though, the reveal scene, or the convincing scene, I actually think that's one of the best versions of that I've seen in a while. I've
Mm,
seen other movies that I feel like maybe they get to the convincing too quickly, or I don't buy it where I'm like, I wouldn't have bought it from this person yet. But
mm.
between the dance, which gets their attention, and then
Yeah,
the Q&A and all the
yeah.
answers, and then to
Hmm.
like seal it with the handshake, it's like a 1, 2, 3 punch where I'm like, yeah, I buy everything that's
Yeah.
happening here. That was great.
Hooray. Yeah.
In fact, one of the things I like about that is that it's usually, I mean, these are normally referred to as body swap comedies, but the
Hmm.
idea of anyone coming up to you, be it, Tom Hanks or, whatever, and just being like, hi, I'm Josh. You're like, wait, what the fuck? And why do you know my, like, that shit would be scary. So
Yes.
to have them play it like they are scared, and obviously the character looks like this butcher that they've seen on TV, but like, no, that would be scary. That's a funny idea in and of itself to make it a
Yeah.
horror comedy.
Yeah.
What a great idea. Um, and it's perfectly played. That's all I'll say. It's
Yeah.
perfectly played. What else do I have here? Okay, so stereotypes and stuff. I also want to go with, like, to a certain degree, also these tropes, um, because the movie does two things. It blatantly references things to remind you, like, it's a horror movie, but it also
Hmm.
likes to recurringly break the tropes and say, like, yeah, we're a horror movie, but we're not playing by all some of these fucking rules.
Mm.
Like first of all, it's R-rated and it's bloody, but there's no gratuitous nudity.
Yeah.
Um, there is a sex scene in the opening scene of the movie, and we get to have the girl finish first and like leave the guy wanting more. Like within the first like, 3 minutes of the movie, I knew that this wasn't just going to be your typical
Yeah.
approach to horror.
Hmm.
Um, so that really kind of set the ball rolling. But also, the sidekicks to me, I don't want to call them sidekicks, but our two best friends are more than just sidekicks. They get to have real support, like kind of,
Hmm.
they're more than just like, they're a really good network of people that
Yeah.
propel the story forward, and come up with their own ideas to help and move things forward.
Yeah.
Um, but also like little blatant things that they are doing. Uh, and I appreciate, like, I feel like they didn't want to just make like a horror comedy. They really wanted to lay into the idea that like it's almost like they're pushing the premise so hard that we're like, it doesn't feel hyper real, but it is very aware of its existence and its genre. So like we're not just gonna have her wake up in the butcher's lair, but it's gonna be like the most horror movie. It made me kind of think of Maniac, and I think in the commentary he even talks about like, well, we wanted to put in a bunch of mannequins like
Yes.
Maniac, I'm like, oh my god, perfect. She wields a chainsaw. She wields a Candyman hook. There's the shot when she's knocking on Josh's door, and it's the Shining shot. Like, we are making a horror movie for you. And
Hmm.
the opening movie alone has kids telling a story around a fire. It has a mask that's kind of an ancient-looking Jason mask.
Yes. He even moves like
The
Jason.
The parents
Yeah.
come home, like seeing Casey hanging in the beginning of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
screen. He kills the last girl by pinning her, Michael Myers style, elevated against a wall, and then stands
Right.
and does the Myers tilt
Yeah.
while
Yeah.
looking at her body. So it's hitting you over the head with certain cliches while also breaking certain cliches, like by not killing their gay, So I appreciate that sort of balance between the two,
Right.
breaking
Another
some rules
thing.
and celebrating others.
Yeah. Another thing that I think this is what one of the things that had me kind of in the movie's clutches from the get go was just the tableau and then the Wednesday the 11th. I
Oh my
started
god,
laughing
the giant
so
card.
hard. Yes. And I was just kind of like, are we gonna go there? And we did. But even if we
Oh,
didn't, even if everything would have just happened over Wednesday night, I still would have thought that is hilarious. I love
oh, this has
that.
so many great, what I like, little comedy beats, little or comedy. They're like micro beats.
Yeah.
Um, but we established the big Wednesday the 11th. So when Millie wakes up in Butcher's body and looks in the mirror and goes, ah, and it just goes
Yes,
further
right
deep.
in the third, and I'm like, you made it work.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it totally worked. I was totally on board. Another thing,
Little micro beats. Another
yeah.
micro beat I like is when the guy that was in the opening scene, the guy that was getting laid when they're on the tennis court,
Yeah.
and he gets killed. What a fun kill! Breaks the tennis racket and does like the arrow going through the head thing, but for real.
Yeah.
She goes, ah, and then the body falls, and then like a beat, and then she does the exact same scream, ah, like again, and runs. I love me a good like scream, beat, scream, and because she does it doesn't work if you go higher or lower. She does the exact same intention.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
Also, huge hook for me with the movie were just especially the first two kills. I was like, oh, okay, we're not in PG-13 territory anymore. We're going, because that first one with the
first one I've
wine
never
bottle,
seen before. I haven't seen that in a while.
And I was sitting there literally just going, oh, while it was happening, watching the gut, because it's relatable enough, that like you're just kind of like, I'm like clutching my neck and just going, ew, 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 this is so cool. Practical. And then the next one with because it wasn't even so much about an effect, but just the slamming of the toilet seat on her head repeatedly. And he's a big guy.
Like
you can
4 or 5
imagine.
times, yeah.
Oh my God, you can imagine the force with which, and that hurts. Like I'm just watching it going, ow, 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 ow. And I was like, okay, so okay. I wonder how much more of this we're gonna get. I think those actually might be two of the most memorable deaths, but I loved the later, because the movie isn't about, like you said, it's not a horror movie, or it is, but it's not like horrific horror movie. Yeah, there's still kills in it. There's still the girl in the cryogenic chamber in the high school.
I watched that. Tracy and I both were like, what the fuck is that? Like before it even started. And then I saw it even says on there, cryo athletics. And I went, the fuck is cryo? Like, and then even they actually address it in the commentary, and I'm listening to him and he's like, well, colleges now, if colleges have it, they have like cryo stuff. So maybe if a small town and they care about high school football enough that they would have this kind of athletic equipment in a high school. And I'm like, even if they did, would they have a device that would allow itself to go to like negative 130? Like,
right.
It's the only part of the movie where I'm like, there's a cryo tube that can kill. What?
No, it was one of those things where I was just kind of like, that is ridiculous. I love it.
I mean, there's plenty of movies where I go, what?
Because she did the fall forward and busted into pieces. I'm just like, and then the other one, other notable kill for me, what was it? It was, God, who else? Alan Ruck.
Alan Ruck,
the teacher,
has a great one.
On the fucking table saw. And I was just like, first of all, okay, we could have an entire pod just about that dynamic between teacher and students. And the fact, let's just say the most disturbing thing about that whole sequence is the fact that he thinks he's doing this to a teenage girl.
Right. Not the self-defense
kicking
part,
her
but when he kicks her when she's down repeatedly.
God. And then the way he's like, ew, gross.
I mean, so I turned into Morgan Freeman and went, kill this motherfucker. Like, he can go. He can fucking go.
So when he ends up on the table saw and then in half and everything, I was applauding. Another thing, a common criticism with this movie is that the deaths seem to happen only to people who you either don't care about or who you're actually cheering them on. I didn't.
What? Well, no. I misheard you. I thought you meant you were cheering the people who were getting killed on. No, but they do a good job of establishing every character having some kind of sin.
Yeah.
Maybe Ryler is maybe the least deserving. She's verbally a bully, but like,
I still liked
other
it
people
when she
are
died.
homophobes. They're rapists. They're attempted rapists.
Yeah, fucking rapists. And
abusers.
Shit, yeah.
No, so the movie does a great job establishing that I want all these people. Well, as a viewer, I want them to,
yes,
die.
exactly. In the movie, these are fictional characters who we would like to see die.
Yes,
totally.
there's never one innocent person I go, oh no, like there are Friday the 13th movies where I'm like, oh no, not Billy or whatever, you know.
Right.
Everyone in
And
this movie is guilty of some kind of sin. The four people in the beginning, all four of them are drinking, two are premarital sexing. Uh, there's three guys that are try to force a three-way on her. They don't even get to it, but they're talking
oh
about the
God.
plans for
Oh,
it. The dude who starts getting drunk and maybe kind of feeling gay immediately reverts to being a homophobe. Uh,
exactly.
the woodshop teacher is a giant mess, and then Ryler is a bully. Like they're all
Yeah.
bad. They're
Yeah.
all movie bad.
Yeah.
I'd be more
So
upset if they created likable characters and then
that's
killed them.
see, and see, this is the thing. Also, I feel like I got the vibe that like that's what's happening. And again, if they would have put in, I had an argument with who I was talking, the one who did one of the two guys who didn't like the movie about the stereotypes and everything, said that like he actually would have preferred if one of the likable characters, like Josh, he suggested, would have been killed off, kind of
Oh.
like combating exactly the point you made, which I didn't have the presence of mind to make at the time,
Mm.
but I thought
Had
like
this had
for
this had been a serious movie,
yeah,
maybe if we
sure,
weren't playing it so for laughs. And even then, the kill your gays trope is such a hot topic right now that I wouldn't have done it
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's 2021 and we shouldn't be. Um, but
yeah,
yeah, this is not the movie. This is not the vibe to be killing Josh in.
exactly. Or any likable characters. I was just kind of like, okay, fun house, roller coaster, you know, like
It's all wrong. It's
popcorn
yeah.
movie. I am having fun. And you know what? I'm glad that person's dead. I'm
Hmm.
glad that person's dead. And because it's a movie, I have the freedom to feel that and not to feel any kind of guilt, because what it is also sending social messages about, you know, on not like a religious level or anything like that, but just
No.
kind of like on a social level, like, well, you did that, so now
Yeah.
you
So
deserve
maybe
to die,
don't
and
be
I'm
a
okay with
bully.
that.
Maybe
Yeah,
don't be a homophobe. Maybe don't three-way gang rape someone. Like maybe,
exactly, exactly. Which is nice
maybe
that it developed. I feel like that was a development from the initial four who were killed for much more traditional reasons.
yes. But that scene to me sets you up of like this is the world of traditional horror movie that we're pulling you into.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
of
You
course.
you kind of need that scene to really to
Yeah.
go for it. Alan Ruck, uh, so interesting to me because well, one, I mean, an actor is an actor can play various things. I love any time 80s era John Hughes actors show up in these kind of things.
Mhm.
Um, but to see little Cameron be this kind of a prick, one
God.
I mean, he really goes for it. But
Yeah.
one of the things that I became aware of, I was watching a few movies last year that were 80s movies, and they weren't even necessarily horror movies, but I would think I never noticed how inappropriate that teacher is in that scene. Like the sort of
Mm-hmm.
mean teacher that pushes the heroine or the hero and kind of calls them out on their shit. I go, that's really unprofessional. And I was never aware of it 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but like I'm watching it now going, shit, some of these teachers in 80s, 90s movies, that would not fucking fly in a classroom now. And I don't understand how it would then.
Yeah.
So I thought that to me just again fit. It just stands out so much because it's the movie came out in 2020. But he's not that far removed from how teachers behaved in other movies. I mean, you look at what like Vernon is doing. I think he's the principal in Breakfast Club. I mean, he's got you
God.
know like they're literally in a closet. He's like abusing a student. You know,
Yep.
there's a lot of shit, a lot of abusive teachers. So to me, he was just like we're having an 80s actor playing like an 80s abusive teacher. Like it worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
It really worked for me.
Yeah. I was disappointed, but he did. The thing is, he did. Initially, I was disappointed because usually I see Alan Ruck, I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
and but then when I saw the way he was acting, and then the way it escalated, uh, yeah, it was unsettling. But he did a really really good job. If I ever get to meet him, I'm gonna of course bring up Cameron Fry, but then I'm gonna just say, and then to play the anti Cameron, you know, the most abusive fuck that I've seen in a teen film in a good long while. Good for you, because I've totally bought both of them, and they both of them completely paid off for me. My final moments with both characters are exactly the way I want to see them. You know.
Hmm.
Um, that said, Another component in the
Oh,
classroom. Yes. What?
before we move away from him, I just want to say one thing. There's nothing in this movie scares me. I think the movie's intentions are, we're not trying to scare you. We're trying to show you a good
Yeah.
time. It's going to be fun.
Sure.
But there is one, every once in a while, I'll see something in a thing that maybe wasn't scary, but it will scare me.
Mhm.
And when Alan Ruck, he gets stabbed with like a screwdriver and he pulls it out of his neck and he's going, oh, like it's this weird, watching him grasp for air and the whistle of his voice, like that wail, that was unsettling to me far more than I think the movie ever had any intentions. But that, watching him struggle to breathe, that was disturbing.
Oh.
That really got under my skin.
It's true. I mean, it's
a good performance.
It's a totally good performance.
It's a very unnatural sound for a breath to make, which is why it was,
I'm gonna have to go back and watch that again. But
yeah, I don't like it.
But it brings up the antithetical character, I feel, in that environment, and also kind of in the movie in Millie's life, which is Booker for me.
Let's talk about Booker. I like this.
Okay, I do too. I'm gonna try to keep this clean because
you're 40.
Because I'm a dirty old man, but he's no, handsome kid and instantly likable. There's something about him, but I think my favorite Booker, even though I love the sequence in the back seat of the car, I think my favorite Booker is everything that follows that when they know the clock is ticking, because he wears this expression on his face for the rest of the movie. For I think the rest of the movie. I mean, and
he's concerned, Eddie.
I know, but I love it. It's just like, because I think they find out, like, how much time do we have? And he looks at his watch. He's just like, 15 minutes left. And he just looks worried for the rest of the movie. And I'm just like, look at you. Anyway. But no, also just like, I like that his last name is Strode.
Yes. On the back of his varsity jersey.
Yeah.
It is.
I like the
football
fact that
uniform.
I like the fact that I buy his, jock with a heart of gold thing that he's doing, but the fact that he's not too perfect. I like the fact that he still does kind of stand idly by while his friends are belittling her. And it's not that I like that. As an audience member, I'm just kind of like, dude, grow a set. Like, come on, like say something. You like this girl. But so there is. I like the fact he's not completely idealized.
Her yet.
Yeah, yes. I also like the fact that I know. Well, no, I know he likes her, but I think that's why
the movie
urging him. But I like that there's something in him, kind of like with Israel Brassard's character in Happy Death Day. The one time Tree wakes up and in walks like, hey, how about that fine vagina? And she's just like looks back at him and just kind of like, not as innocent as I don't even remember the line, but you know what I'm talking about. Where we realize, he's been kind of like the quintessential nice guy this whole movie. Is he? Because why would that guy be saying that unless, like, how did he know? Interesting. I still like you, but you're not perfect. Right. So
that's the truth. Is I've experienced this with other people, but like even not counting the so-called "Hey, I'm a nice guy," which is like one of the worst things you hear because
no.
Hashtag not all men, like that bullshit. Actual, even supposed nice guys, like nobody is perfect. Like there is, so that works for me. He may have all the right intentions and care about her, but still, when push comes to shove on that football field, he can't speak up. There is no perfect, sweet, innocent, awesome guy. There's going to be some little thing.
Right, who's going to save you and scoop you up and make everything all right. I like the fact that he wasn't that. It was just...
There's going to be lessons that still need to be learned and all sorts of, That just makes him more grounded to me than some perfect dream.
Yeah, but the second he wakes up in Josh's house, and again, Vince Vaughn, like we'll find some space to talk more about this, but just the way Millie is looking at him while he's sleeping, And even when he wakes up and she just tries to explain everything to him, and then just goes like, doesn't she say something like, "You look good," or "You look nice," you know, like something like that. And I'm just like, I remember being a teenager. I never got to express it, but I remember being a teenager and the guy, across the classroom, and I'm just like, he looks nice. I mean, I'm like, okay, you captured it. Good for you, Vince Vaughn.
Yes.
But
We'll get to that, but he captures a lot.
yeah. But I kind of like the evolution of the character, the fact that like once he kind of like makes his peace with the fact that, it really is Millie, so much so that he wants to go like sit in the back seat with her, and essentially I don't feel like there's any kind of like intent, like overriding intention. I feel like it really is kind of moment to moment. Maybe I'm just being naive, but the fact that he's comfortable enough to like sit in the back and just like get to know her better, like finally he has an opportunity to talk to her and get to know this girl who he's noticed so much, who wrote him that poem, which we'll get there. But but I like the kind of natural progression we get toward that kiss, because the kiss isn't even the most significant thing that happens. It's just the one that makes my head go, wait, are we doing this? Oh God. It doesn't even explode. It just kind of blooms like a flower. I'm just like, oh, whoa, so we're doing this. Okay, yeah. But we're not. Because his face, her hand is the size of
kills
his
the
face.
moment.
Yeah. And also I think it's kind of funny because the whole time I'm watching Vince Vaughn in this movie, all I can think is like, God, even with the shower, I'm like, those clothes still have got to have some kind of stank on them. Like,
yes.
Yeah. Why didn't you ever change? You were in your mother's store. There were clothes. You could have easily, like just hoodie, pants.
You could have put on the polo shirt that was hanging in the dressing room store.
Yeah. But so whatever. That's one thing that I would have liked to see. What Millie? I keep calling her by the wrong name. Sometimes I call her Missy. Sometimes I call her Maggie. I don't always remember Maxie. Millie. One thing that I would have liked to see is how she would have dressed as him. That would have been fun for me. Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. Didn't think about that. The thing I like, one of the little things I like about Booker is before we even get to the car, my first moment of, I mean, obviously Alan Ruck's being a dick and he's like, dick,
Yeah.
No, the moment for me was when they are at, Millie and the football guys are at the mini golf course. They're in the arcade. And they haven't even gone into the maze and her friends haven't shown up yet, any of that. They're just like on Instagram. And that guy like kind of grabs her ass.
Yeah.
You look at Booker in the scene, he's just kind of looking over at her like, something's off with you. Like, I can't put my finger on it, but I'm concerned right now. Your behavior is concerning me. And he's already selling me that, like, I'm like, oh, you're already concerned and you care. I like you. I'm already reading that something's not right.
Yeah.
And so that sold me. But yeah, that car scene to me, what I like about it is that besides the humor of it, besides the trans sort of acceptance allegory of it, I also just like that from a character beat, it just, I think the humor of it and all, it all works because from a very basic level, Booker has learned that like the girl that he wanted, that he hoped had written the poem, wrote the poem.
Yeah.
And like, why waste, like if I'm in a car with her and like we're already talking, I'm in the front seat, we're connecting and he's already giving her advice about strength and all that, like making the choice to like not let this male body be an obstacle. Like if it wasn't Vince Vaughn's body, if this was just like a rom-com, a teen movie, this scene would still be happening exactly the way it is because you're in that moment and you're having that charge and you want to take the next step and make the next move and connect and I just like that he allows all that to happen, because if it was Millie's body, he would still be disinterested, excited, wanting to make these steps. And I love that he continues forward with this, seizing this moment. Vince Vaughn body be damned. I'm going to seize this moment.
I totally dug that. I was like, and also, but even to a point where I'm just kind of like, he is so comfortable.
I know.
I don't this is either like an incredibly mature kid or a kid who just really doesn't give a fuck. Maybe he's fluid. Like it opened up so many wonderful possibilities that I didn't need answered. It was just kind of like, it could be anything, you know?
I think he just is so into Millie. And the fact that he says it's been you from like day one, that means like, holy shit, like how, because I don't know if they established they're clearly not freshmen though. So like this has been going on for a while. I'm like, that's how confident I don't know. I don't think it has anything to do with him being fluid or being so above it. He's just so driven. Like he just cares that much about her. That's not an obstacle for him. Being Vince Vaughn, and I love that.
But I like the fact that it's also subjective enough. Like, I mean, I think your argument is valid, but if somebody saw something different in it, I'd be like, okay, cool, awesome. Sure. Like, exactly. Why not? It's because it's certainly, what was it? I just, I'm gonna have to get into it, but just the fact, I don't know, it was so reassuring to see a situation where a guy is confronted with kissing another guy when there's been no kind of like foundation laid beforehand to incur or any kind of evidence to lead us to believe that he's anything other than like, you know, typical American straight, you know, cisgender athlete boy. And
he doesn't go gay. Like
exactly. It's just like, I like that I also like the fact that she's the one who blows the whistle, and then he's totally just like, okay, cool, like whatever, whatever you're
we'll do it later.
comfortable with. We'll do whatever. It's up to you. It's cool.
It doesn't even cross his mind to be like, ooh, gay. It's about who literally she is on the inside.
Yeah.
And not about the shell of the outside.
Yeah, it makes him dreamy. But, I mean, I could have really used a guy like that, you know, at my high school, is all I'm saying. But it's, okay. In terms of like other things that, okay. How best to approach this? Okay, I'm going to go with some criticisms, but I'm going to try to lump them together so we don't like linger on them too long. Okay. There are some plots in the script that I don't think works quite so seamlessly. Like I said, I could point at the screen and go like, okay, but I know what you're going for, and this is good enough. But the changing room exchange between Millie in The Butcher and her mother. I remember I was watching and I was just like, okay. So abrupt and so kind of, I feel like it's written in such a way that it's almost like they knew this is a long shot, you know? So let's have the character call out the fact that, oh, this is ridiculous. Like, I haven't even seen you and I don't know. And I just started talking to some man through a door. And there is certainly a case to be made for why it works. But that said, it does not feel organic to me. It doesn't feel like I know why it's there. I think the performances are good. I get everything I need to from the moment, except kind of like, I guess the path there and the way out. It's just so abrupt and so unnatural. I'm just trying to imagine a scenario where it's one of those cases where it's like, yeah, I imagine myself in a changing room and some woman comes over and, excuse me, do you? And I'm just kind of like, okay. And then she starts talking to me about her husband who's passed away, and and even like really insisting on helping me pick out my polo shirts. I don't know. There was something about it. I was just kind of like, I see what you're going for. The emotion is there, but I can see, I see the path there, and I see the path out of it, and it's just kind of like, okay. And other moments like that, the poem is one for me, just because there was nothing laid out that I can remember to set up the poem before that moment. So when it happened, I was just kind of
after the fact.
Yeah.
And you're with like Josh is like, what the fuck? And then because I'm like, what the fuck? And then me and Josh, we all find out.
But it's one of those moments that I do pull out and kind of feel like the writers were just kind of like, and how does she get him? She recites the poem that she wrote him. She hasn't memorized because, and
I'm kind of glad they didn't set it up earlier, because I would hate if there was a thing about like he finds or he's still kind of going with the letter. I'm like, well, that's gonna pay, like then I know that's how she's going to win him over because it's
I
already been set up earlier in the movie, and I was fine with it.
but
I was
see,
confused at first, but then a
right.
minute later it was all explained to me. But yes,
But
I feel like I see your
sure.
point. Like that could have
Again,
been
it
how
felt
the
like a
writers.
contrivance of the writing because another thing they did set up when that paid off, it was the watch. When they
Mhm.
think that the 5 minutes, but I always said 5 minutes
Yeah,
before it's lifesaver or whatever it is, and I was just kind of like, oh, it wasn't one of those twists that had me go, oh, like, oh,
yeah,
good. I was just kind of like, oh, that's how we're gonna get past this. All right,
yeah. When
you
he
know.
put it on her, I went, huh. I remember your line. So when the thing goes off, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh no, it's midnight. I just thought I wasn't with them going, oh no, it's midnight. I'm like, well, no, the 5 minute thing's gonna pay off now. Like
And again,
you didn't fool me, movie, because you
yeah,
actually set it
yeah,
up too good. You set it up too good.
exactly. So
In fact,
it's yeah, yeah. Sorry.
I appreciate a good screenwriting 101 kind of setup and payoffs. And this movie
Uh-huh.
has quite a few little ones, and I appreciate the
Yeah.
fact that maybe not the watch, but the fact that they establish when you first see Millie getting picked up by her friends and you see this town square, they start on the town clock.
Mm-hmm.
So that when the thing goes off and they're like, well, the clock hasn't chimed. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
the town clock, that's a good little setup.
Yeah.
Same thing with just like, he first pulls up, picks them up, and when he peels out, his car sounds like shit. I remember thinking, well, they really made sure to let me know that his car is shit. And then later in the movie, when it doesn't work, I'm like, hey, it's not out of nowhere. So many horror movies, you get in the car and it won't start or something. You
Right.
did a nice little setup for his car. You did a nice little
Sure.
setup about wanting to hook up with drunk straight guys. And now we have it. And
Yes.
it's now also a sign of a character where you're getting the thing that you wanted,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not. It's not the kind of comedy where now you get to enjoy the thing you wanted. You push that aside because like, no, what the fuck? I'm trying to find. You said you knew where fucking Millie was. I need to find my friend. What the fuck is this? Like he
Right. Right.
chose
Right.
what's important over making out with a drunk jock.
Right.
Nice little setups and payoffs.
Absolutely. These are just some of the ones that like I was just kind of like, well, I'm not feeling it, but I get it, and they're not deal breakers. I'm just kind of like, okay. And then one
Sure.
more that I wanted to
Yes.
mention, which will lead into another topic.
Oh, well then, wait, but before that, can I double back on something then? Because I
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
talk
yeah.
about something you talked about.
Okay, go for it.
This is rare for us, but I think I liked a scene more than you because of how I felt. But I actually quite enjoyed most of the dressing room scene.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like it got there a little too fast. Like you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought it was a little awkward. Like, oh, I'm trying on polos. I'm like, let me. And now she's giving me TMI. But I love that they wrote in. She's like, I'm sorry, what the fuck am I talking about? Like you're trying to try on polos, and I'm talking about my dead husband. Like, oh, you're acknowledging yes. And the fact that with any other person this would be weird, but the fact that it's Millie in there allows the scene to continue, and I'm okay with it continuing. And maybe I'm an easy mark, you know. Part of it, is personal experience, and part of it is because Vince Vaughn sells it. But when the wife is talking about her husband being gone, and fucking Vince Vaughn's like, "Yeah, I lost someone too, my dad." I'm just like, you two are selling this really like whatever's on the page. You're. I don't know if I read this, how I'd feel, but holy shit, you two are selling it. Vince, I turned the second Vince Vaughn's like, yeah, like he hooked me. He got the hooks in me. The rest of that scene carries me through, and I get it because it's a body swap comedy. We have to
Yeah.
have the scene where the person doesn't know they're talking to the person and learning the thing, and that you Millie as herself wouldn't have this conversation with her mom. Maybe by the end of the movie she would, when she's found more strength in herself. But prior to
Mm,
this, she hasn't. This conversation needs to happen between them, and
mm-hmm.
the body swap trope of having the conversation with now that you're the stranger,
Sure.
giving the advice and allowing your mom to, learning what your mom's intentions are. Yeah, it's the scene that needs to be, and I
Uh-huh.
think they sold it, and I felt
Okay.
feelings during it. So there you go.
No, and I did too. Like, I mean, because of the performances. But I think the only reason I even brought it up in the way that I did is because when I'm watching a movie, if I start thinking about, oh, that's a problem. Maybe they could have written it like this. Maybe they could they have set it up so that like the mom saw him going and she doesn't know who the killer is, but how would we plant that she doesn't know what the killer looks like when so many people in the town do, when his pictures like his little drawing is up in like windows everywhere. Okay, well, maybe if we could set up though that the mom doesn't know or maybe wasn't paying attention. I mean, she's she's drinking all the time. Maybe she's not paying attention.
Right.
But now she's sober and at work and seems to be really attentive. Uh, unlike unlike the night her daughter got killed.
Right. No. Drinking's for when you get home.
And being overbearing and over attentive is, I mean, drinking's the nighttime and daytime is over attentive, over compensatory behavior. But like maybe it could have been like, oh, she was interested in him, maybe she should have seen him before, and I'm like, already the wheels were going, and I'm like, oh, I'm not listening to what's going on in the scene. It literally happened in a second. I didn't miss anything, but I felt my mind wandering, going, oh, that shouldn't have. Okay. And so when I start thinking about how I would have done things differently, then it doesn't entirely, I know it doesn't have its hooks in me. So there's that. The other thing, yeah.
No, one little thing about it too is when she asks him out.
Yeah.
And then the way he like turns her, what's great about it is I was watching that scene, and because there's, all actors have their kind of actorisms, even if it's not a specific tick, they just have a sort of way about them. And Vince Vaughn has a way of kind of over rambling about things in his Vince Vaughn kind of way. And when he's like, no, I'd like to have dinner with you. I think we're having a connection. But the fact, I mean, you're showing me the story is so beautiful. The way he's like, you're sharing things, and he didn't say so beautifully. He's like, you shared me stories so beautiful. I thought that was so fucking Vince Vaughn-y. And then in the commentary, I found out that like the last part of that scene, they let them riff it. And I'm like, that's why it sounds so Vince Vaughn-y. I liked it. That's all. I liked it. And I'm glad that like, okay.
The only other thing, the only other thing that pulled me out a little, and then immediately I was drawn back in, is the Josh's mom comes home section. It started when he started going on about how they're role playing because he's straight. I felt myself moving into Happy Death Day to You, French exchange student going, hello, voulez-vous coucher avec moi? Ce soir.
Not that extreme.
Not that extreme, but I was scared because I was like, uh-oh, are we going into this? Well, and again, pulled me out a little bit because I was just kind of like, okay, there's no way she's going to believe that. And I can see you're trying to craft something funny. The saving grace for me was the mom's response.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of things, but straight is not one of them.
But the fact that she said it with zero disdain, but just because she's a mother who knows her gay son, I was just kind of like, I like this. I'm a fan of this. And then when the killer finally gets released, because of course the killer's going to get released, and starts chasing after Josh and his mom. I thought it was adorable watching them scream their way down that hallway and slam the door and everything. And somebody brought it to my attention. I still did. I have too much fun watching them act, so I never look at the room. But apparently, in the room is filled with portraits of the two of them.
Like they look like show posters. Like they've done not like a one-man show, but like a two-person show, and these are our little like show posters. And in fact, I think there's one shot of the table. It goes by really quick, but it's like these little, like they might have been 3D printed or like, but it's like these little figurines of the two of them with their hands together.
Oh my god!
Like no, there's all sorts of these little show portraits of them, which makes her mind even better. Like we've done theater acts together.
You have dressed me for photo shoots and done my makeup.
Yes, we've done David and Moira at the Christmas party together.
Exactly.
Look at the little Hummels of us doing this. Come on.
Exactly. Because I don't know. I mean, it again, total stereotype, but if it's handled in the correct way, I didn't feel insulted by it at all. Just like watching this like gay boy and his mother framework, and I'm just kind of like, I'm on board. If the movie, if the sequence had like I don't know, kind of gotten there differently, even though I guess I understand the humor. Again, it's like being on the outside of it and going, I see what you're doing, I get it, and it's immediately saved for me by something that I really, really like. But the whole killer being in the chair thing and reacting, by that point, I remember I was just kind of like, we've spent too much time on this. I'd like to go forward. Oh, we're going forward. Good. And it's
Nice.
adorable. So yeah, so that there was that.
And that leads you into something?
Josh. Oh, I think I just did it. Just Josh with his mom.
Oh.
Yeah, I liked it. So there's that.
Speaking of gay stuff,
Yeah.
there's a line that cracks me the fuck up. I had to rewind it, listen to it again, and then I had to rewind it a third time with subtitles to make sure I was hearing it correctly.
Yeah.
And, they are fleeing the high school, and the police get on the radio, and then we cut to Shar, her sister, hearing the call, going, he's accompanied by 2 teenage suspects, 1 black female, 1 white, excited.
Right.
1 excited. Oh man.
And what is that hashtag that Millie comes up with in the car as Vince Vaughn? Like hashtag, it was scared and excited, scare-sighted or something like that. I don't remember. It's cute. With Millie, okay. I have a beef. Not with the actress. I think she does a great job.
Yeah.
Better than a lot of people. There are a lot of people who don't feel the work, you know, like the work that Vince Vaughn and is it Catherine Newton? Is that her name?
Newton, yeah.
Yes. Did you know, like to build this mirror thing, you know, like to play like both characters and everything like that. And the people who do who don't like the movie anyway seem to enjoy them playing each other more than them playing themselves. You know, or they're, you know, the characters that they start out with and start out as and end up as. I don't really have any problem with that. I thought the performances, it never occurred to me that they were anything less than totally enjoyable and fun. My beef with Millie as a character, though, because you mentioned something and I had a little reaction, talking about her growth and everything. Millie to me feels like a final girl by accident or almost by proxy. She's not the final girl because she embodies necessarily final girl qualities so much as she's the final girl because the script has appointed her final girl. Because even I was watching the movie again prior to this, and something occurred to me while I was watching her kill scene in the, you know, in the field, and I was just kind of like, that's why she's not the final girl for me. She literally gets killed. Like if he didn't have a dagger, that swapped their bodies, if he was just gonna kill her, he would have gotten her. He would have killed her. She is not, by slasher definition, you know,
at that point in the movie. She's still got some shit to learn, but yeah.
She does, but the question is, does she learn it? And the thing that pissed me off, because, you know, I was just kind of like, okay, I'm fine with this. And she's got a support system. I like that they're helping her. I don't have a problem with that. I don't need her to do it all by herself. Because some girls, you know, it's anybody can have backup, and I love watching people fight on their own. I love watching people fight with a team. I'll take either. But it was the end when after she's there cuddling with her mom, and her mom tells her, like, you're going to that college, and she's like, thanks, Mom, in tears. And I'm like, oh, this is sweet. The movie's not over though yet. I'm totally not getting credits, you know, or anything like that. So the fact that she goes over to an open door, and they even plant the seed. They tried. God bless the writers. They tried to say, I think she says, Shar, you left the door open again. Sister's a cop and she leaves the door open. Great. But it's like, okay, you just escaped a killer. You know, if he has any opportunity to come back, he will. You're not afraid at all. All the lights in the house are off. You don't turn them on. You hear noises, suspicious noises, and you go after them with an inquiring voice, like doing and breaking every rule, going like, I mean, I don't know if she says who's there, but I mean something to that. It's just like, hello, hello, just that energy. And I was just kind of like, you've been through a whole movie. You should not be making these mistakes right now. And again, even if you're going to walk around and investigate on your own and not try to include your mother or your sister because you don't want them to get hurt, sister's a fucking cop. She could probably help you. Turn on some lights. Maybe you'll see better. Grab a fucking blunt instrument so you can. She doesn't have anything in her hands to defend herself. And I was so mad because, again, the killer's behind her. He's got the upper hand. He speechifies, monologues, whatever you want to call it, way too long for me because I'm angry. I'm just getting so angry now because of the things he's saying, because they're so toxic, they're so mean, and he's just getting at her and her family. Knocked both her mother and her sister on the floor and everything. And we keep cutting. We don't keep cutting, but when we cut to them, they haven't woken up yet. And I'm just like, God damn it, movie. Like, I was feeling good, and now I feel shitty, and there's nothing you can do that's going to undo that. And when she finally her family comes in and they Halloween 2018 him with, like the Strode girls all coming together and like, we'll take him out together, fine. But then at the end, when she finally, does away with him and just looks into the camera, just like, I am a fucking piece. I'm like, are you? Are you?
Wow, Eddie.
Because I'm not convinced, because of the way you were written these last few minutes, that you'll survive another movie. It's not like I'd be pleased to see it, but I wouldn't think it was out of character for her to be like Adrienne King'd Friday the 13th Part 2 if there's a Freaky 2. Or what, Freaky Death Day or whatever. I
don't consider I Am a Fucking Piece to 100% relate to her toughness and survivability.
Okay. She says it like, I'm a badass. So
Right. But I mean, the reference to it is earlier in the movie with her lack of confidence in herself.
Yeah.
So by now, having the butcher throw all these words in her face and then, fuck you, I'm going to kick a stake through your fucking chest.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see her becoming Aaron from fucking You're Next, but but I don't think in that moment she is the girl that when she walks into a school, she has to like shift her way between boys and slink along a locker. And I will tell you this: the first time I heard the line, I'm like, wait, in this moment we're going to quote that line? Because that doesn't really apply to the beat I just saw.
Yeah.
And I'm still maintaining that. I don't think that honestly, I really like this movie, but that's not the line I would have ended on because it doesn't fit the scene. Upon multiple viewings, I vaguely get how it kind of connects to an overall theme. And I think also on its own, like I see like it's a good line for the beat, but it's not the scene doesn't support that line. So
no.
But allow me to play devil. So while I agree with you on that, I will say let me play devil's advocate for a moment.
Okay.
And ask that you're saying, if he has any opportunity to come back, he will. You just went through all this. From her point of view, that fucker's dead. She doesn't know she's in a horror movie where, Randy's like, well, they always come back one more time. She doesn't know that. The movie has set up very blatantly that you are watching a horror movie. She doesn't get that information the way we do. And then if you're talking about her walking around the house and pretty much asking who's there, and I'm like, again, horror movie cliche. I'm okay with that. It's a horror movie cliche.
Not for my main girl. I disapprove.
Okay.
I reject. I was literally clutching the air before me going, what?
And she's under the impression that he's dead.
Okay,
then,
there are other people in the world who could do her harm. Like, if you, you don't have to have a supernatural killer come back from the dead.
Right. There could be three jocks who are like, hey, 3 holes.
Thank you. I mean, and also, because that's another thing. It's like, the line in and of itself I don't like, but also I always feel like the next moment should be almost her sister slapping the back of her head going, why didn't you call me? You know?
Right.
Or her, because I think if I had done everything she did up till that moment where the man is in my house, or anybody could be in my house, I would probably need a little moment to recover going, wow, I really fucked up. I made a lot of bad decisions when it was the middle of the night and I found my front door open or my back door, I don't know which door it is, and started to wander around a dark house without any kind of weapon. These are not mistakes a girl who's been through an ordeal. I'm not going to make it about sex, about a girl, anyone, a person who's been through an ordeal, and has just gotten their life back. I want there to be some kind of survival instinct that even all she had to do, it's something simple, like all you have to do is grab something and just do something. Give me like a visual cue that you're ready. You know, don't be a dumb hello. I mean, yeah, I agree. Horror cliche, but for my final girl in the last scene, no, I reject it. I'm very angry.
Okay.
That said, I do enjoy the performances a great deal. I think Vince Vaughn redeemed himself as an actor for me with this movie, and even pushed himself in some directions I was just kind of like, I don't think I've seen you do that yet. And maybe it's just the framework, but you know, like the backseat scene, or the I'm showing my best friends who I am, or I'm whipping my dick back and forth. But whatever it is, he's so there. I buy it. There's enough energy going into the performance that it feels like there is a performance, there is intention, there is a motive, there is personalization and specificity and all those things I love, I thrive on as an actor watching other actors and as just an audience member watching movies. And then, but it's also not such a performance that I'm like, take the muscle out. I think it's great. I think he did a great job. So.
Yeah, I would say he's kind of note perfect in the part.
Yeah.
I've liked him quite a bit in Swingers and Maid, and I'm citing pretty early stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was Return to Paradise. What was there's something I'm forgetting that I quite liked him in. But yeah, let's say all is forgiven from Psycho.
Oh, even did you notice the homage, the Psycho homage, when Catherine Newton is in the police department or whatever?
Oh, that slow
everything's moving fast, and it's like they've got the Norman Bates shot, but instead of going in, they pan out. And I was just like, oh, like slasher horror homage, but also because Vince Vaughn was a Norman Bates,
right?
Okay. Good for you, movie.
Also, the dagger is very Kandarian dagger, Evil Dead looking.
Yes.
It's even got a little skull for a head. Come on.
Yeah, the clothes when you stab someone.
He's great in that this might be similar to what you said, but like I completely believe that he is Millie. He doesn't extra overtly play like girly. I've seen other movies where like the two actors aren't totally in sync, whereas this, I know they had rehearsals and they kind of built the characters together and kind of studied each other. And there were a few times where I felt his character was a little more accentuated and expressive and a little more feminine than her. But I also, upon second viewing, really appreciate the fact that she is coming from a more timid place in her first few scenes.
Yes.
And is shocked by something in this. And then once she learns to become empowered by the physical strength she has, it allows her to be a little freer in later scenes. So there actually is like a structure to it. So I appreciate that. But no, there is he plays it like a teenager and not quote unquote a girl. And I think that's honestly great because he plays a lot of the truth of a lot of her emotions perfectly.
Yeah.
Concurrently, she's got this great death stare, and not even death stare, but
Ah,
like
yeah.
processing with intent. I mean, one of my favorite things for her to watch is her wake up all through the breakfast scene with her mom,
Yes.
because it's just listening and thinking about what the fuck I'm dealing with, but also what I want to do. So much so that like that's the cop that shot me last night. Like the
Yes.
God. She, in a weird way, she almost has well, actually, they both have comedy's hard. Horror being scary is hard, but horror comedy is a very fine line to walk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I feel like maybe they both have it hardest because he's obviously got to sell the comedy of this, but if you don't buy her as a killer, then part of
It
the movie
doesn't
just doesn't
work.
work.
No.
You know, and she's fucking great in it.
Yeah.
So much so, when she goes off into the fucking mini golf course, like
Yeah.
I'm a little worried for Booker. Don't go in there. And the fact
Yeah.
that I'm worried means you're doing your job. But yeah, she gets that. It's easy just to tilt your head and lower your eyelids. It's another thing to have it mean something. And she
Yes.
really
Yes.
sells the fuck out of it, and also sells the limitations of strength, but also the enjoying the fact that you are like a sheep in wolf's clothing, that I can get away with
Yeah.
this. Some of her best moments, I fucking love them, are when she pretends, when the butcher as Millie pretends to be Millie. Like
Yes.
when she
Booker.
narks, oh my God,
Booker.
Booker! And at one point she goes like,
Or when she's in the hallway.
or when the cops are in the hallway and she's like, oh my
Yes.
God, it's a butcher right here. And then just right back to it. These are the things that like the butcher, it's funny, but the butcher is also like learning like, holy shit. Because earlier the
Yeah.
cops walk by and he's like, fucking pigs or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
holy shit, I can get away with a lot in this body. There are advantages to this. And
Yeah.
she sells all of that. And you can tell she's having a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
it's weird because she is the bad guy. And I'm rooting for Millie and her friends.
Yes.
But when these fucking douchebags are talking about three-waying her,
Yeah.
I'm so excited to watch her. It's a weird thing where I'm rooting for both. I want her to kill rapists. I want her to kill a homophobe. I want her to kill all these people.
I agree entirely.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite relieved when it happens. I'm just like, I am so glad this happened.
I don't often say this, but both of those leads, they're kind of note perfect for what this needs to be.
I think so too.
They delivered perfectly.
There are some people for whom it doesn't work, and I can't really speak to it because I don't share it. It's
Right.
I mean, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. That's fine. But looking at it as an actor and looking at what they did, and also, okay, that's another thing I wanted to bring up. But I do want to say before I move on with I've seen Catherine Newton in a few things. I know I've seen her in Paranormal Activity 4. I know I've seen her in Big Little Lies. And I know I looked at her on IMDb a few days ago, and there were a handful of other things that I was like, well, I've seen that movie, but I don't remember who she was in it. So I can't speak to that. But so far, this must be like my favorite thing that I've seen her in. And that's another, even though I'm not like kind of hashtag Team Millie, this is probably my favorite thing I've seen her in, and also, and that is something that happened for Jessica Roth with Happy Death Day. I hope this trend continues with kind of star-making turns that Christopher Landon does with his horror movies. Whatever he does.
I was already a fan. I can't remember if I saw Paranormal Activity 4 first or Halt and Catch Fire. I think it must have been Halt and Catch Fire because where I didn't recognize her. But I remember watching Paranormal Activity 4, and we talked about this. How like say what you want about the faults of that movie as not as being as strong as 1, 2, or 3. Mm-hmm. But my number one justification for why I like that movie is because I'm like, I like these two leads.
Right.
These two kids are really carrying me through this movie. Mm-hmm. And she really stood out to me in that movie. So by the time I got to Detective Pikachu, I'm also watching this going, this girl's really good. Where do I know her? Oh, it's Paranormal Activity 4 girl. Cool. She's getting work and shit. Cool. Like, good for you. She's a hoot in that movie. She really, so I'm down. I haven't seen Big
Yeah.
Little Lies, but yeah, this really is.
Yeah.
So even already being a fan, I think this is my favorite I've seen her do.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about the two leads. They're fucking great, really.
Yeah. As far as the movie in and of itself, one thing that I noticed, even though like I've cited like some writing things here and there and everything, one thing that I really kind of latched on to as far as the filmmaking was concerned was Christopher Landon, I think, has really developed as a filmmaker. And I liked what he did before. We talked about this with the Paranormal Activity Mark ones. It shares the mantle with the first one as my favorite of the franchise. But so I've always thought he was capable, and I've always liked him. But with this particular movie, one thing that I noticed was, oh my gosh, the way he's using the camera, like it is contributing to the pace of the movie, because it never really settled for long. There were always pans, or I don't even know if they're crane shots, but just like the camera was always seemed to be moving to keep this story in motion. Like the pace never really dropped. And even in exchanges like at the kitchen table, in Millie's house, or in the dressing room scene or whatever, the close-ups or the two shots or whatever there are, like that are stationary, never stay on the screen for more than, I'd argue, 5 seconds. The whole movie just moves at a clip that I liked a lot. I found it incredibly digestible. I found it incredibly and appetizing. I mean, like, it's wonderful to digest something that you find appetizing. And it just made everything so much more feels so much more mindful. I thought well, certainly there's moves like this in like Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You, and there are, but they're it's not as uniform. Like there's such a significant cinematic style, and also a visual style. I find like the colors are so saturated and just pop, and are also used mindfully. Like, I mean, they can change the temperature of a scene. So as a filmmaker, I was just kind of like, go Christopher Landon. Like, I really can't wait to see your next movie, not just because I like you, but because I feel you growing while I'm watching this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, but this movie, and if you watch that and this back to back, you will see a jump.
Yeah.
You will see growth.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I actually had the same response, but a completely opposite, where it was actually, I appreciated the fact that when Millie is leaving the football game, that I'm like, we're just staying on these three fens for a while. We're not cutting to close-ups. We're just staying on this one take and letting their friendship and their like, we're not breaking up the moment with a cut. We're letting them act the full scene for like a minute.
Right.
This is cool. Same thing. I think it's the back seat of the car. Like I think it just I forget if they break it, but there are multiple moments in this movie where like they stay on them for a minute and let them do the work. And I'm like, these are good choices.
Oh, I didn't think about the backseat. Here we've been talking so much about the backseat, and I didn't even think. See, that one I was so in, I couldn't even think about technique. But yeah,
it stays on for quite a bit.
Yes.
But I have my own little nit, and it's not the biggest nitpick. And even then, I can flip flop on the nitpick. So it's a weird note to have.
Yeah.
But it does that thing that I always have a problem with in movies, and I'm gonna try to work my way around it. But the cliche of casting someone pretty as someone who, quote unquote, within the movie isn't pretty.
Right.
And it's, so she comes into school and by the way, the fuck kind of name is Ryler? Like, Ryler is a mean girl name. No offense to anyone out there. It's kind of a stupid name, and I'm glad Ryler's dead.
Nothing personal.
Ryler's mean. Ryler, that shitty faux compliment, you know, but like,
oh God.
So she's making fun of the way she dresses, and I'm thinking, her dress is fine. Her sweater is a little old, but like, she's got a cute little pattern dress on. She seems like what a fucking, like, what a bitch. But like, also like, she looks like Catherine Newton? What's wrong? Why this is what we're gonna? I don't get it. So then fine. Let's say the argument is, and they set it up earlier in the movie when they're walking in, where Josh is like, "You're a fucking piece," and I'm like, okay, so he gets it. So I get it. Like, she looks like Catherine Newton.
Yes.
Why is this a thing? But but I think it's her other friend that establishes that, like, look, you got it. You just, like, you need to own it. And I'm like, okay, she is not owning it. And the very next scene is when she walks into the school, and she like bobs and weaves between this group of people, and clearly it's she's not there yet. She doesn't know she's a piece. And like, when they talk about Booker, she's like, oh, he hardly knows I exist. Like, I'm thinking, how the fuck would he not have a locker next to you and not know you exist? And it turns out he does know you exist.
Exactly.
How does he not sit next to you in wood shop? You have got something. And that's when I maybe have to go against myself and be like, but there are people who, I'm not even talking about looks, who have value and don't see their own value. And that clearly is her problem.
Yeah.
She definitely, I mean, she comes off as a wallflower, but there's definitely a lack of confidence there that she needs to learn. But then I come back to the problem again, which is she shows up at school on Friday the 13th in a ponytail, and like, the guys are like, oh, and the one guy like squirts his little like go-gurt of jizz or whatever, and I'm like, it's a leather jacket and a ponytail. However, then I go back and really think about it though. But she's coming into school, shoulders, head, walking, confidence versus, and I think people pick up on that. And again, if what's not allowing her to be a piece is the lack of confidence, Butcher in that body has all the fucking confidence. So then again, it works for me. But I had to kind of flip-flop a few times to even get there. But again, here's what brings me back to, is, okay, fine. So she is a piece, and she just doesn't have the confidence, and now she does. If they hadn't written this other part in, then it would have been fine. But the fact that the jocks, when she's dancing, and they go, the only beaver no one would touch, and I'm like, it's Catherine Newton. What are you talking about? And the other one goes, if you brown bag her face, she's sort of doable. If those are the lines you're writing, then don't cast Catherine Newton, or keep Catherine Newton and don't write those lines. That makes those jocks look like morons. And not like the morons that they're supposed to be, but like, I just don't get who looks at Millie and goes, oh yeah, brown bag that. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, okay, first I'll speak to just like the bully thing, because I mean, you're not the first person to bring this up. Like, I had a talk with someone who full on said that they like pretty ugly girled her, like, you know, like Not Another Teen Movie.
Yeah.
And
it kind of, again, I accept it with the confidence, but it is this close to just taking off the glasses. She puts her hair in a ponytail and walks into school, and guys are jizzing.
But I also have to say that, like,
it's more.
Also, everything that she experiences beyond that, like, I'm thinking about, like, okay, there are girls who are mean to other girls because they think they're pretty, because they're threatened by them. And so, but they see a weakness, so they know to exploit that. They know to go after it and make them feel insignificant and buoy themselves up, because belittling others is the only way that they can make themselves look good or feel good. And maybe I have more insight to that because I'm a gay man than I do into the straight jock guys, but I do know that there's also belittling that goes on there among, it's not just jock guys, but just among a particular kind of male image, or shall we say masculine image, about dismissing, I mean, like, about, let's say, not expressing your actual feelings, and about just tearing other people down, to buoy yourself up, to puff up, to be like, yeah, how about that? It doesn't matter what you're saying. So much as like, oh yeah, what about her? She's in this stupid costume. Let's just make a fucking thing. Yeah, she's like, I mean, I would
That's
like
a thing.
to say, yeah.
I don't necessarily buy that for what that scene is, though.
I can tell you, I remember being in high school watching people get belittled and going like, and I wasn't even at terms with my own sexuality, but I could watch one person belittle another, and I'd be like, yeah, but you would totally do her though. Or, but you do think she's pretty. Or even if you don't, you know everybody else does. That's why you're acting that way. So
I guess if that works to me if it was maybe an isolated thing, but between like the guy who barks at her in the hall, then these jocks who talk about it, and then Ryler, and then her teacher, it seems to be she's like a magnet for this sort of thing. So it's not just like an isolated one thing. So
I've known a lot of pretty
thinks,
vulnerable people too.
I think the target on her back, I think, comes from more of her confidence.
Totally.
Than anything.
Totally.
Which is one of the things that, you know, I mean, it's not the strongest third act arc, but I mean, if the idea is that, you know, like the kid who barks at her, she picks him up. And that's when she first kind of, when he pees himself, she like realizes her own strength as this body. And she starts to find this confidence. Like but then it's when Booker kind of explains, her like, well, strength doesn't come from your body. It comes from like what's in here and what's in here. Like she doesn't come to her lesson on her own. Actually, like Booker kind of fills it in for her. But I mean, the fact that she starts out the movie as a wallflower, and even towards the end of the movie when Butcher's in there in her house, like yelling at her, he's like, he calls her a coward, I think.
Yeah.
I found it interesting because I thought that the movie almost set up two different kind of obstacles when really you only kind of need one. I thought it like you had her lack of confidence, you're a piece and you don't know it, and then also like, well, my mom needs me and I'm not living my own life, I'm living for her. And I'm like, it's really interesting that you kind of set up two different issues, because normally you kind of just create a character with what does the character want and what is their obstacle, and then how do they overcome their obstacle, and that's your movie. And this one they had two, but it almost kind of became the same thing, because she's not finding the strength to speak up and share her feelings with her mom.
Sure.
Just like she doesn't have the strength and confidence in herself, like it's school. And in a weird way, like the confidence is strength, and both physical, but then learning more than just physical strength. So by the time you get to the end of the movie, even that's the bummer, is that her mom just lets her off when they're in the bedroom together. And to me, the lesson learned would have been her telling her mom.
Yeah.
And that gives me the beat. And instead it's just she's killing the butcher. And I would have really liked to have seen that, because those two storylines actually kind of are the same, but I didn't get that satisfaction from it.
The whole mother thing actually is something that I think is probably, I don't think it's poorly written. I just think it's underwritten. Because actually, like, listening to a bit of Christopher Landon's commentary gave me even more insight to the mother character, because even though I love Katie Finneran as an actress and have for years, I think she plays it fine. I mean, she does a good job, but I never really feel like I get my head around who is this person. I found that there were some big gaps with that character for me the more I watched the movie, where between like
no, I went to the deleted scenes looking for more. Because I thought, like, okay, we set up so much about her drinking, and at the end of the movie, like, she like lets Millie go to school, and I thought maybe there'd just be a scene where like she wipes the counter and throws away some bottles. But we bring this stuff up, and then it doesn't really, like, I just, like, it feels like a basic movie beat to like give her a little period at the end of the movie too.
I even found myself asking this last time I was moving through the movie, just kind of going like, does nobody ever mention the fact that like she, I mean, quote unquote, was killed, you know, like in a field or attacked by a killer because her mother didn't pick her up?
Yes,
Like, I mean, and they
it is
do,
addressed.
but I had to pay extra close attention because I noticed, of course, like there's Char in the Norman Bates scene where the mother comes in and everything, but I had to turn on the subtitles to understand really what she was saying. All you kind of hear is just like hysteria. It's just like, what happened? What did you do? And then later, like just seconds later, I think, in one of those like glorious moving shots, the whole thing is moving.
When Millie's in the bathtub.
When she's in the bathtub and you hear the argument. But again, I could barely hear the argument. I had to
I lost you.
but you lost me?
Yeah, just go back like 5 seconds.
Oh, okay, cool. So in that scene where the camera's moving over the bathtub and she's just sitting there and she can hear the fight, a voiceover, and I could hear yelling, and I was like, okay, that's probably Char and her mom, but what are they saying? I can't make it out. So I rewound it, had to turn on the subtitles, and I saw, okay, they were arguing about the fact that like she didn't have just one glass of wine, you know. She's like, it was one glass of wine. It was not, it was one bottle. And they just at each other. And then like, you know, the butcher does whatever he does to us. I don't know if it's a washcloth on the face or whatever it does to just kind of like drown it out, and then that's it. But that's like, as far as I could gather, isn't that it?
That is. And for the kind of movie it is, it was enough for me. I remember the first time watching it when she's in the police station, and I'm like, it's like, this is so your mom's fault. This is very irresponsible. I hope this gets addressed. And then the very next scene is her in the bathtub, and her and Char fucking having it out. I just remember thinking, okay, good. I'm just glad that it's being fucking addressed.
Okay, it didn't, like I said, the first time I watched it, it didn't even occur to me. I was so into moving with the story and everything like that. But this time I was really,
I was
like,
left at school and someone tried to kill me, I'm like, this is getting fucking addressed.
Right. And the way she tries to make it up to her is by making a giant breakfast the next morning. And then the next time we see her, she's at work flirting with some man she's never met who she doesn't even know what he looks like.
Also, I didn't know that on Thursday the 11th, she makes her like banana pancakes or caramel, like, so the next morning, I made your favorite. I'm like, didn't you make that for her fucking yesterday? Were you too drunk to remember that you already made this breakfast for her yesterday?
And that's one thing it was one of those things where it was like a double-edged sword. Like, I was grateful they didn't kind of like solve her alcoholism by the end of the movie, because who you know, you can't do that. But I was also like kind of like, but we're not even going to address the alcoholism at the end of the movie. Like, I think she used, if anything, the bottle at the end to like crash over his head or something, and it's like, okay.
So if anything, it's a good thing you had that alcohol laying around. It's sort of a mixed message.
Yeah.
Speaking of, it's funny because there's another mixed message if you want to read into it, because this movie is so, for the most part, pretty kind of queer positive as far as like trans allegory, and just like an out confident gay teenager who doesn't die and who isn't, he's just not bullied, he just is. But if you look at the J.K. Rowling type fear of, well, you know, what if any man who identifies as a woman just invades a dressing room or a bathroom or a personal space, when you've got Millie as the butcher in the girls' locker room with Ryler, I'm like, oh, this is like J.K. Rowling's worst fucking nightmare.
Oh my God. Yes, I totally didn't go there. Oh my God. I still don't.
The first time, but no. but fucking
I see what you mean.
Lindsay Ellis's essay about the transphobic tropes in Hollywood, I just watched it days ago, so it was kind of on my mind. You know, if you talk about the history of like Norman Bates and Buffalo Bill and the trans other being the villain, and you literally have like a man in a woman's body as the killer. Like I can see
Right.
the J.K. Rowling types being like,
right. Interesting. I
That's
see.
like-
The thing that struck me the most about that particular, I guess, sequence, not moment, but that sequence, wasn't, well, of course, wasn't that. It was actually, I was actually kind of fascinated by Ryler in that moment. I won't say fascinated, just I thought she was more interesting than just like, she could have been up until, or she had been up until that point, because when the butcher starts like stroking her hair or whatever, and she's just kind of like, oh, well, like, I don't even remember what she said, but she's like, oh, well, so I mean, that's okay. And I'm like, I mean, I think you think it's okay, but I also think you're trying to prove something to her that like, like, oh, I'm not fazed by anything. I'm,
Right.
I'm cooler than that. In fact, I might be into it. Just like calling her
only
bluff,
pretending
and
to be into it,
immediately,
though. It was, but it wasn't her letting her guard down that she would be into it. It was letting her guard down that I'd pretend to be into it.
I mean, again, like there
just
could be
to make a statement about who I am. Yeah.
But there could be a gray area again. Like, I mean, I don't feel like they were telegraphing, she's not into it, not at all.
Right.
She's just putting up. But it was like, okay, there's a few things that could be going on right here. And again, I like the subjectivity, but it just made her more interesting to me. It made the whole exchange more interesting, because also then he is no longer, when he sees that she's putting up a facade of somebody who'd be into it at least, he immediately gets disgusted with it, because he doesn't want somebody who's into it. He wants to disturb somebody. He wants to scare somebody. He wants them screaming and terrified and everything. So that component, that's what I was latching onto in that particular moment, that I thought made it really interesting.
Yeah.
And that made it
like that
other
scene.
than just like a guy chasing a girl. Yeah. I was like, okay.
Well, it just makes me laugh. I love when Ryler's talking and Millie / the butcher is kind of walking around, and then like, oh, fire extinguisher. Like she gets this close to being like, meh, meh. Like I'm gonna pretend to. Yeah, I think it was in Sleepaway Camp 2 when she's like trying out all the different things to kill someone with,
right.
And it was that close, but I just love picking up the fire extinguisher, like, nah.
Right.
But then also, him like petting Ryler's hair is genuinely creepy, because in that moment I could see Vince Vaughn doing it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't enjoy it.
Well, that's good.
But Vince Vaughn doing it, like I adored Vince Vaughn peeing for the first time, and
yeah,
like, do I wipe it? And then like slap, 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 slap. Like everything that, and again, it never plays too jokey or too untruthful. It just feels like a girl discovering a penis. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's been a good few years. Like Jack Black had a similar beat in Jumanji. It's a good time for that generation of comedians to be girls and boys' bodies playing with wieners. There's something in the comedic zeitgeist right now about it.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Another little tiny nitpick. The nittiest of nitpicks, but this is such a movie cliche. But it was funny because Tracy pointed it out. We're watching when Butcher as Millie is walking into school, and it's the shot because they keep it on her behind and overhead, and they don't reveal like her face until the doors open, and then the boys can see her face, we can see her face. But she's walking from behind, and Tracy's like, "Oh, he knows how to do a ponytail." And I was like, almost coming to the movie's defense, and I'm like, it's just a ponytail. Like it's a kind of a cute little upper ponytail, but is that really hard? And she's like, do you want to do a ponytail on me and show me how easy it is? And I'm like, all right, I presume you just pull the hair up. Like I feel like the butcher could do this. So then she gets her little headbands and we sit down and I pull the hair up and I do the thing. And then it's like, and I'm like, okay, I guess even a simple ponytail, like a higher up, like would take some knowledge and some effort. And yes, I guess I don't believe the butcher would know how to pull that off. But for me, the other thing I noticed after she said that though was, the Blissfield butcher knows how to do makeup.
Right. Totally.
But to me, that's a thing that I let go. I mean, my brain, it pops in my brain a lot, but
Yeah.
every movie, they just sort of have the one that cracks me up the most is the Resident Evil movies, where we're in
Mm.
like especially like in the sixth movie, where it's the full blown like Washington D.C. is decimated. It's just the apocalypse,
Yeah.
and yet Mila Jovovich Alice is taking the time to like do makeup because she's
Yeah.
always got like red lips and blush and wet gloss. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe there's a deleted scene where she's like, "Hey mom, I want to do my makeup today. It's been a long time since we had like a daughter day." But yeah, I just like the idea of like Bill the Butcher like actually like doing, and it's not heavy makeup,
No, no.
but it is foundation and lipstick and like lashes and
Yeah, yeah. And that's time consuming.
yeah,
But good for you for
and
noticing that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's just a little thing, but not enough. Again, not enough to derail it because it's not a huge plot point. I only have a few little things before we attempt to wrap up. There's just some little
Yeah.
beats, here's some of my favorite little moments or beats or things that stuck out. I I like that when she tells that guy earlier, like, "You make my fucking pussy drier than sandpaper, and I can't kill you later." It's a fucking great line,
Yes, it is.
even though it's coming from the mouth of the character of a man.
Yeah.
I have to imagine there are people who identify as women who fucking could really relate to that beat.
Yeah. I
Um,
can't wait to show that to Marnie.
there's something I don't. I mean, I can't speak, but I don't know if empowering is the right word, but relatable. But just anyway, I feel like in a world, there's a world where I feel like women right now can't necessarily speak up and say that because there's a fear of what would come next. But I would
Mhm.
love that we did live in a world where they could just fucking say that
Yeah.
because it's icky and gross and true. Um,
Mhm.
but what I love is when she bumps into that guy later and he's like, "I've never made anyone's pussy dry. Come on, look at me." I was like, "Oh my God, I don't have a pussy and it's dry." That was the fucking worst.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, guy, like my pussy is dry. Like that's gross. Get off the fucking screen. And then he gets killed. So that's great. Like they made me hate him twice. So I'm so happy he died.
Yeah.
Another little thing. This I'm sure you know this, but this went into production. The concept, the pitch, Freaky Friday the 13th was the well, actually, the story was it had some other, like it was called Killer Body.
Mm.
And do you know how how this came to being? Sort of the story of how like the
I do not know.
again, I apologize to the other writer, but he had this pitch for a movie that he was going to go out and pitch to people, and he wanted to like
Mhm.
practice it on Chris Landon, and Chris Landon's like, "All right, great," it was called Killer Body, and then he's like, "So it's basically like Freaky Friday the 13th." He's like, "Stop right there. It's not called Killer Body, dude. It's called Freaky Friday the 13th." That title tells you what you're in for. And I
Yeah,
remember,
totally.
and it went into production as that. And it wasn't until like they'd finished filming that like ding ding ding, Disney was like, "You can't use Freaky Friday like in your title. You can't."
Mm.
And it became Freaky. And on the one hand, I do, because even before I knew that story, when I just saw the title and I knew what the movie's about, I'm like, "Oh, Freaky Friday, got it." But
Mhm.
when I found out that it was originally titled and went into production and went through its entire production as Freaky Friday the 13th, I'm always a little sad that it's not called that because I think that's a great fucking title. I think it
Yeah.
belongs on a DVD box, that belongs on a movie poster. And when the movie, when I was first watching it, and the first thing you see is Wednesday the 11th, my first thought was, "Oh, I really wish this was called Freaky Friday the 13th." Man, like you just reminding me, like what a great title. And I don't know how bitter Chris
Yeah.
he is, but what a just lightning bolt of a title if there ever was one.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think the only other note I have on here was, oh yeah, regarding like it was just Catherine Newton and just like how like her sweater is kind of old and also like her hair is kind of like it's not even messy, it's just not the most styled. But then she puts it into a ponytail and all the guys all of a sudden notice her. I don't know. That was it. Yeah.
The
Did you
last
know?
worthy transformation of like I won't even call her final girl, but of like a main girl at the heart of a
Yeah.
teen horror movie that I really bought, was Sissy Spacek and Carrie. Like I
Mm.
had no problem believing she was that girl who everybody shit on the first half of the movie, and then when they get to prom, I always go, when I see her with the little curl that Betty Buckley talks about in her
Yeah.
hair, and the makeup. It's little makeup, but it makes a difference. Just looking at her face while she's putting it on in the mirror and everything, I'm like, God, she's gorgeous. You know? Oh,
I'm just saying this, like Catherine
Carrie.
Newton in the beginning of the movie, like Millie's, even like Millie's hairstyle. I'm like, yeah, she looks like a perfectly nice girl. Like she's not. Again, it's how she carries herself. It's how she
Mhm.
sees herself, and not the cosmetic exterior of what they did. But
We're also adults now. Like, I wonder what like teenagers make of that. I wonder if they're really like, oh well, she's just a movie heroine, so of course she's going to be, like, well, my lips aren't that red.
see, I
You
was
know?
thinking, no, no, would like a modern teenager look at this and be like, no, look at her hair. It's fucking beat. Like,
Right,
what a
right.
fugly ass bitch. Look at that hair. Look at that sweater. And
Like,
like,
honey,
maybe
there are
I'm out of
YouTube
date.
yeah, there are YouTube
I'm the
tutorials everywhere. Like, you
Yeah,
can
I'm the
learn.
40-year-old that's like, well, her hair seems fine. It's like, what the
Yeah,
fuck do you
we're
know about
totally
style?
like, yeah, we're totally the people who are just like, well, then anybody who treats you that way isn't your friend. Like, we're those people.
Oh fuck.
We're
I
not the
hate when
kids
adults say
anymore.
that. By the way, they're like, why would you treat like that? It's not your friend. I'm like, I know. That's what I'm saying. They're not my friend.
Right.
They're shitty and mean. That's the stupidest response from adults.
They're
What are you
shitty
talking
and
about?
mean. I think we all can relate. And we all had somebody who we got in our heads when you said they're shitty and mean. Jesus. Oh, I don't want to think about it. I'm
Yeah.
feeling too good.
So those are my thoughts on Freaky. I don't know if you've got anything you want to wrap up with.
um just everything we kind of opened, just reiterating it, saying like I really really am looking forward to the next movie, not just because I actually, the first Christopher Landon movie I think I saw that was written by him, it wasn't directed, because this one was both co-writer and director, but I don't even remember what it was called. It was about werewolves, and it was I think it was the first thing I ever saw Hugh Dancy in. And
Was it Burning Palms?
no, it had another weird name, and I'd look it up,
So I
but my
haven't seen
computer
Burning
just died.
Palms yet.
No, my laptop just died, and I did see it back in the day. It's not a great movie, but I remembered I was just kind of like, I can see like there was some homoerotic subtext here and there, and it was kind of like, oh, there's his hand, um, and the rest of it, and apparently like like it was a very low budget movie, and a lot of production happened, and a lot of things happened to his script. So I'm just like, okay, I'm sure there's a great version of this script somewhere that just
And he
got
directed
buried
it?
in the movie. No, he just wrote it. He just wrote
Okay,
it.
good. I was gonna say because it's not under his directing credit.
No. It's under his writing
Yeah.
credits, and it has some. I don't remember things anymore. But
Oh
so
wait,
no, yeah,
hold on. He wrote Blood and Chocolate.
that one, yes.
Yes, I've never
And that's
seen
Hugh
it.
Dancy too, isn't that? Yeah, and that's
Uh,
like a young Hugh Dancy, and I remember that was my first time seeing it, and I was just like, "Ooh, who's that?"
yeah, I remember that being just like a few years before the Twilight boom. Like that movie
Yeah,
was a few years too early.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't great, but I was looking, because I had read that I mentioned in the I can't remember whichever came first. I think that's when I mentioned, like, I think it was in Paranormal Activity. I mentioned how I came across him like on the cover of Advocate, and I'm like, who's that? And then I read his
Yes.
boards, and I was like, oh my god, yes, that is exactly how I feel about being gay, and about like, if there's a club that's gonna completely discount me for that reason, then I don't want to belong to that club. And it's like, yes, exactly, this is I love you, man. And I kept looking for his work, saw Blood and Chocolate, and went, well, I'll keep walking, I'll keep looking. And I have been, and I've been really really glad. But no, this uh yeah, I had fun with it. I'm glad I own it. I got a little free, because I don't own any of them on Blue, so I got a little trifecta off Apple that have all of the extras on them. If you just stream them off the Apple when you purchase iTunes or whatever. And it had Freaky, Happy Death Day, and Happy Death Day to You, all for like $30, and that's like $10 per movie with
That's a good
extras
deal.
and commentaries. So why not? So I got them.
Right on.
And yeah, I'm gonna watch it again. I don't, like I said before, I don't need movies to be perfect in order to enjoy them. I think this has a lot of character and a lot of appeal, and I can't wait for people who haven't seen it yet to see it. This is one I actually want to screen for friends. You know, I really want to see. I want to know what my sister thinks of it. I want to know, you know, like that kind of thing. So yeah, that's how I feel.
Speaking of like the next Christopher Landon, I'm curious about. Well, there's two things I'm curious about. One is that I know Jason Blum was like, "Dude, we gotta do Freaky Death Day. We gotta do Freaky Death Day. We gotta have the two meet up." And Chris Landon's, I know it's been brought up more than once. His most recent response that I think I read about only like a week or two ago was, "That sounds fun and all, but I'm still more concerned with doing a Happy Death Day 3. It's like I don't have a Freaky Death Day idea. I have a Happy Death Day 3 that I want to tell." I'm like, good. I like that answer.
Me too.
Although I do think a Freaky Death Day, I like the title.
I don't know what the premise would be, but yeah, why not?
Yeah, I tried to think about that. I'm like, well, I presume, because I know that he said, like, I do want Tree and Millie to meet, and he's even said that, like, in theory, they kind of exist in the same universe.
Right. Yeah.
Without ever really saying.
I thought that's what prompted the whole thing. Yeah.
So let's say they meet. To me, it's really easy. Have Millie go to college, but also like Tree's now. I would have Tree be working anyway. You'd have to have a time loop that I would want Millie and Tree to both be in. But then someone needs to be killing them. There needs to be a body swap. Well, does the body swap happen with Tree? Does the body swap happen with Millie again?
Exactly.
The fucking butcher's dead. So like half of the fun is you want to see them, but I don't want them to come back from the dead. But I don't necessarily want a new villain because, you know what? Maybe don't do this and just do Happy Death Day 3.
I mean, I would assume maybe the time loop would happen back to a point where he was at least alive, like at least maybe not the whole day, but at least before he was killed. I don't know.
Ooh,
I don't know.
If anything, you take it one step further. You're fucking with time already, but what if they like can fuck with when the loops occur?
Right.
So now you're looping the events of Freaky.
Right.
So we're revisiting them again.
Sure.
But now Trees, I don't fucking know. Here's the
thing.
Me
neither.
And it's a far more clever writer than I fucking am. So, but he is. And last I checked, last year it was announced that he was coming on board to kind of supervise the next Paranormal Activity movie. But I remember reading about a week or two ago that he's now like, I think, a writer on it, which I don't think he used to be. But they have said that like it's not necessarily. Well, they've said it's not Paranormal Activity 7.
Yeah.
But but we're also not going back and remaking Mika and Kate. It's just we're sort of rebooting. Like we're doing
It's a reboot.
We're doing a Paranormal Activity movie, but it's not those people. It'll still be. So yeah, I can't. He's reached the point where you put his name on it, and I'm instantly interested. So. So yeah, Freaky. That was a movie worth talking about. We talked about it for longer than the length of the actual movie itself.
Oh, did we?
Of course. It's why the show is called Movies Worth Talking About, because we
can
talk about them.
And they're worth it.
And if you want to follow Movies We're Talking About on Instagram and Facebook at Movies We're Talking About. Thanks for joining me, Eddie.
Thank you, John Carlos.
Until next time.